Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to do an outdoor edition in my backyard and talk about why it's important to vet for a proper Catholic spouse. And yes, how you even must decide not to choose certain people based on some of their red flags. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, secutora in principio et nunc et semper et seculi seculorum. Amen. For those of you who've been listening to my channel for some time, I have not done an episode on Catholic dating, Catholic marriage in some time. I do have a playlist that probably has about 30 episodes by now, but I thought it'd be important to do one, and I like to mix it up, and it's been some time. So this episode might offend some people simply because you might have some of these warning signs. What do I think is the number one criteria in choosing a spouse? And look, let's be real. There's only two true vocations, the married life and the religious life. Single vocation is not a true vocation in its cause. You can, of course, be single, and you can choose to be single. You can choose to be, let's say, a third order Carmelite or something like that. But to be single, and especially to be single and live a life of licentiousness, is not a true vocation. And there's not graces that you would per se get as if you were in the religious orders, where you get graces, and of course in the sacrament of matrimony, where you get graces. So we can make the choice not to marry, but understand it's not a true vocation. And I would say that the majority of people would marry if they found the right spouse. So what's the number one criteria? I would say that being a practicing Catholic. I mean, clearly, I would think that is going to be number one. Now, we have an episode here, should you marry a non-Catholic? Can that work out? Sure. I know people whose parents were, one was Catholic, one was a Protestant, and they're still married. Whether or not they're happy, I don't know. And certainly there's a lot of Catholics who've gotten married who ended up in divorce. So choosing somebody that is the same religion as yours is not a guarantee, but I would say that especially if it's someone who's practicing the faith as fervently, hopefully, as you are, that does help, because they understand. Let's say if we use the kind of description, which I'm not a big fan of, but a traditional Catholic. If they're a traditional Catholic and they understand that the sanctity of matrimony and the permanence of matrimony, and they have the same mindset as you on matrimony, and hopefully you have the proper mindset on matrimony, then yes, it does increase your chances of the marriage at least not ending in divorce. You know, what is the definition of a successful marriage is somewhat amorphous, because on one level, on the minimal level, you're not divorced. On the maximum level is that you have a deep bond, a deep understanding, and all these things. And ideally, that's what you want. You want the latter. But being Catholic's number one. Look, canonically, we can only marry Catholics unless you have a dispensation, so this is important. That being said, I think it's obvious. And if you don't know, on the left side, you can kind of see my Sacred Heart of Jesus statue. I just noticed that you can see it over there. There's a little fountain with a fish pond. I don't think I need to spend much time on somebody being Catholic as number one. Now, look, this is the part that might get offensive. We have to vet potential spouses like we're supposed to vet candidates, political candidates. And many times we don't, because for a variety of reasons. Maybe we rush into marriage. Maybe it's the pitter patter. Maybe you're having sex before marriage, which clouds our judgment. Maybe you have a scarcity mindset because you haven't had a lot of luck with people of the opposite sex, and then you find somebody who really likes you, and you just want to get carried away. Maybe you want to leave your family because you've been living with your family for a long time. There's a wide variety of reasons why people kind of rush into marriage, and sometimes it's just you want to have sex. Like you understand and agree that you should not fornicate. It's scriptural. It's a church teaching that fornication is wrong and it can endanger your soul. And so maybe you want to get married so you can start having sex. Totally understandable. But we still need to vet, because there are going to be factors that people have that can increase your chances of that marriage being derailed. So some of these are very obvious, but this is the part what I mean about maybe offending you, because you might have these problems or traits. But then at the same time, you have to be intellectually honest and understand that, yes, maybe people don't want to be with you because you have these problems and you shouldn't be offended by it. So, for example, an addiction. if you're an inveterate alcoholic or an inveterate, even I would hate to say, porn addict, men, or fill in the blank, gambling addict, and somebody doesn't want to be with you because of that, you can't be mad at them for that. We have this idea of kind of the Disney mindset of unconditional love. You should love me no matter what, all my flaws and so forth. Well, certainly once you're sealed in the nuptial act, that is really the proper mindset to have. But prior to that, look, if you have, and I'm going to use this example quite a bit, if you have two people that are identical in every way, one's an inveterate alcoholic and one's not, only someone who is a masochist is going to pick the alcoholic, or someone who's got the martyr syndrome, one of these things. But these are important, and again, when you're vetting, you need to ask people, and I think there's nothing wrong with asking somebody, hey, do you have any addictions? And then also you have to have the kind of the art of discernment, and because many times when people have these things, they're not going to tell you, so you have to kind of like be an inspector with a magnifying glass and see if they have these problems. So addictions is one thing, because addictions, of course, if any of you grew up with an adult parent who suffered from addiction, you know what it's like. And if you've gone to my sister channel, I lost over 100 pounds and kept it off for 30 plus years. I talk about my experiences with that. So that's definitely one. Another one is going to be somebody that has severe psychiatric problems. And this is by no means shaming people with these things, because I do believe like there's tantamount to physical maladies. But if somebody has severe schizophrenia, for example, they hear things, they see things that aren't there, that is a tough life to have for that person and to marry that person as well. If you have somebody who has, let's say, severe agoraphobia or severe social anxiety or severe obsessive compulsive disorder or severe whatever, bipolar, even dissociative identity disorder, these are going to be difficult things that could lead to a dysfunctional marriage and a difficult marriage. And so if you meet somebody who has these problems, you are not a bad person for choosing not to marry this person. And again, if you have these problems and the person doesn't want to be with you because of it, they are not a bad person as well. And you can even include physical maladies. Let's say you find somebody who's got, has had 4 heart attacks by the time they're 40, or has some debilitating disease like Lou Gehrig's disease, or some early onset dementia or something like that, or has stage 3 cancer or stage possibly 4 cancer, metastatic cancer. These are things you need to consider as well, because we marry the medical problems of our spouse. So you might be in good health, but if you have a spouse who has a debilitating disease, you're going to have to take care of them, and you're going to have to nurture them and all these things. And again, once you're married, that is the expectation. But when you're in this kind of atrium or antechamber before marriage, you still have the option not to choose these people for that thing. The other thing I would say is debt. Look, if you find somebody who maybe has a lot of these good qualities but has, $150,000 of debt, this is something that is going to addle your finances in the future. I would tell people to go to a state school, not a private school, and certainly there is a difference between school debt and consumer debt, because at least school debt theoretically is an investment in your future, especially if you choose the right degree. Not everybody does that. I think on one level they need to close all College of Liberal Arts so you don't get these useless degrees like French, political science, anthropology, all these things. But with consumer debt, we know consumer debt's a complete waste. All that consumer debt does is just, you're paying interest and so forth, and it doesn't lead to anything that is estimable. But at least with school debt, that is something that theoretically can lead to something constructive, especially if it's leading to an occupation that is going to reimburse you and make a lot of money, like pre-law, pre-med, all these things. But still, this is something you need to consider, because marrying someone with a lot of debt is going to affect your finances. And look, we can talk more and more. There's other warning signs as well, but I think in closing, them being Catholic is important. And then after that, being Catholic is really going to be also equal to similar values, or at least it should. So if you marry a Catholic, or you're dating a Catholic, but you're super pro-life and the person you're dating is pro-choice, then that's going to lead to problems. And I would tell you, don't marry someone who has dissimilar values than you. But more often than not, if you're watching this channel, you probably would only consider marrying somebody who shares the same views as you on the kind of the social issues that are very scandalous and controversial right now, on whether it be on abortion or end of life issues or embryonic stem cell research, whatever it is. But find somebody with similar values. And then after that, yes, I mean, it is important to vet very well, and don't rush. And lots of times when you have a scarcity mindset, you are more likely to rush. And anytime we rush, just like when we're in panic mode or anxious, we kind of trigger the rat part of our brain and we're not really using our intellect to its fullest capability. It's the same thing. If you are looking at marriage kind of in a desperate state, you're more likely to just pick anything. And you need to not do that, because again, marriage is supposed to be inviolable. And if once you get married, you're with this person forever. And so you want to make a good choice. And in closing, look, if you're one of these people who has these very large red flags, ideally you don't want to be offended or limit your ability to attract a mate, then work on these things, right? Work on lowering your debt. Work on if you have severe mental health problems. Work on the addictions. I mean, we don't want to have kind of a quitter mentality. These are things that are malleable and can be fixed, so try to fix them so you will be a better quality of a mate. And as always, we should all be working on bettering ourselves and improving ourselves, and through the power of our hard work, but also through the power, of course, of prayer and submitting to the will of God. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you about your prospects of dating or how you found your significant other. Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.